The managing director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Kofi Yamwa, has condemned remarks that the president's intention of listing the VRA, the Volta River Authority, and the GRIDCO, the Ghana Grid Company, on the Ghana Stock Exchange is ill-advised. He said the listing of these two companies will actually help deepen the development of the market and also serve as good equities for pension fund investment.
Address to Parliament on the state of the nation, the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo indicated his plans to list the Volta River Authority and GRIDCO on the Ghana Stock Exchange. This, he said, is part of measures to make them efficient and strengthen Ghana's power sector. This signal, according to the MD of the Ghana Stock Exchange, is a welcome news, especially when it is coming from the Chief Executive of the land. He said the president's remarks signals efficiency for these companies and that their listing will further deepen the development of the bourse.
If you become a public listed entity, your army of shareholders will require you to be much more efficient and deliver more. It will also require you, the market discipline will also require you to be much more transparent. If you are efficient and you are transparent, it is good for the economy as a whole because we get value for money for every transaction that we go through. And that is exactly what the president, I believe, meant by bringing these companies to the market.
The MD also said the comments from the former Minister of Power, Kwabena Donkor, that the listing of the two companies on the exchange, that it is ill-advised, is unfortunate.
If you have 32 and more counting banks and insurance company operating in this sector and they are private companies, then it stands no reason to say that GRIDCO shouldn't be privatized or shouldn't be a public company listed on the exchange. If you are profitable and you come to the market, you're expected to be even more profitable.
The managing director of Carl Brokers, David Tete, also lauded the idea, saying the greatest signal to issuers on a strong capital market is when government begins to diversify its holdings in state-owned enterprises through the stock exchange.
You would see that there's more transparency because more people have an insight into the way those two businesses will be run. From the market perspective, you have individuals, local fund managers being able to share in the wealth that these two institutions are generating. So it can only be good for the markets.
The head of brokerage at First Bank, Edem Akpenyo, says investors will be looking at how profitable these two companies will be when listed.
Tariff setting will be such that it will be profitable to those companies so they can make some money, grow their companies and still be able to pay investors some dividends. That is something that will be a key determinant in whether listing those companies will be successful or not.
Currently, the debt-owned institutions in the energy sector is estimated at 4.4 billion cedis and has had a toll on the performance of the financial sector as most banks have lent huge sums to VRA.
Well, the Africa Center for Energy Policy and Energy Policy think tank has, however, kicked against moves by the president to list both GRIDCO, the Ghana Grid Company, and Volta River Authority, VRA, on the Ghana Stock Exchange as part of a national electricity master plan. The president, at the State of the Nation's address Tuesday, indicated this as part of plans to restructure the energy sector. ACEP, however, in a statement said this is not a position it supports. GRIDCO, according to ACEP, is a strategic nexus of the power sector with control over the entire transmission system, which makes it a critical national security infrastructure. Government, according to the statement, should continue to control and own GRIDCO 100%, and on VRA, ACEP also proposes that government consolidates all hydro generation under VRA and then separate all the thermal plants into a subsidiary of VRA holding company, and then government can then list, according to the energy policy think tank, the thermal subsidiary on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Right, I have with me in the studio tonight Dr. Ishmael Aka, who is the head of policy unit at ACEP. Good evening, sir, and thank you very much for coming. I mean, I've heard various arguments. So when I heard you suggest that GRIDCO, for example, is a critical national security installation, so it should not be listed on the stock exchange, it was a new one. It was the first time I'm hearing that. But why can't we list a strategic national security installation on the stock exchange? What stops us?
Well, Nothing stops us really, but why do we want to list it? I mean, we may want to list because it is inefficient, it is not making profit, or we need more money to do investment.
And these are good grounds.
And these are very good grounds, and we have GRIDCO doing well now. In terms of efficiency, they are doing very well. But what we are saying is that when you take the power sector, you can look at three segments. Generation bit, there are a number of companies, IPPs, government institutions, VRA and co. When you take the distribution bit, we have ECG, NETCO, and you even have bulk power consumers like the mining companies. So at both ends, we have a number of companies. We have only one company linking the distribution and the generation.
And that's GRIDCO.
And that is GRIDCO. And GRIDCO is doing well. So we believe that we can still support GRIDCO to do better, even as a government institution.
How can we do that? Where do we source funding to inject into GRIDCO to ensure it becomes more viable?
I mean, they are performing a service. And when they perform, they do that, we pay them transmission charges. And it goes to them. There are instances where VRA or ECG may owe them because people are not paying ECG and all those debt cycle thing. But if we're able to deal with some of these things, I think that GRIDCO will be fine. Then we can also have, for instance, institutional representation on the GRIDCO board instead of having political appointment, so that at least it can also help beef up the management of the company. So that is with GRIDCO. For VRA, we support the listing, but we think that we should have a VRA holding company.
A strategic listing.
A strategic listing, and list the thermal component, because they need money to get fuel, they need money for more investment, while we have the hydro component still under VRA holding owned by government.
So, you know, the whole problem is really because of the huge debt that appears that it cannot be offloaded if these two companies are not re-energized. So that the idea is that if they're re-energized, then they could make more profit to break even. So under the circumstance, how would you then recommend that this huge debt is handled?
Well, we believe that first we should identify the sources of the debt. How did we even get to $2.4 billion? It's because ECG buys power from VRA. VRA goes to the market, get loans from banks, go and get fuel they generate. ECG does not pay them. Why? Because government institutions does not know that cycle. Illegal connection and so many other things. Government says that sell power to lifeline consumers at subsidized prices, and government does not pay the subsidies. We sign contract with private organizations like Ameri, for instance. VRA goes to Ghana Gas, take gas on their balance sheet, and give the gas to Ameri to use it because of a very bad deal we signed. So VRA owes Ghana Gas for gas they did not use. VRA owes N-Gas, they owe WAPCO.
So really all we need is a streamlining of the existing functions and systems to make sure we are plugging the loopholes where the losses are accrued.
Very good, that's the first step. Then we ring fence the energy sector levies introduced by the previous government to at least pay some of the debt. It cannot pay all. What we can also do is to issue bonds, more like sell the debt. So while we plug the holes, ring fence the debt to pay, we sell the bonds and use the energy sector levies to pay for the bonds when they mature.
I don't know the thinking of government in the decision to list the GRIDCO and VRA on the stock exchange, but do you think that the suggestion you're making will clear off these challenges, debt challenges, quick enough?
I mean, it
that
can.
Perhaps government is thinking that listing on the stock exchange is the best way out.
I mean,
the quickest way out.
It can, and even if we list GRIDCO, for instance, on the stock exchange, we believe that government will still be a majority shareholder. And if we don't solve these behavioral and structural issues where government institutions use power they do not pay and all those things, we'll still be where we are.
I know I keep asking you this, that the previous government had a strategy to deal with the energy challenge, and experts like yourself had suggested that we use multi-pronged approaches. Now, a new government is here. What would you suggest to the new government to be their strategy in